On the fateful royal wedding day of Camilla and King Charles, amid the intoxicating music and dazzling lights, a horrifying secret was accidentally recorded, a dark secret that no one knew about. For long years it was buried deep under the cold ground, lying still in the infernal darkness next to deadly evidences that everyone feared to touch. Then suddenly 15 years later, when Camilla complacently thought she had firmly grasped the throne of power, the nightmare from the past unexpectedly resurfaced like a revived corpse. Ironclad evidence laid neatly in the hands of Princess Anne, the only princess daring to risk tearing apart the deadly veil of silence. From that moment, the past became a slashing blade, sweeping the entire royal family in an unprecedented storm. What exactly was that terrifying secret? And when the truth is exposed, will the dark ambition or ironclad justice be the final survivor? April 9, 2005. Windsor Castle was lavishly decorated like something out of ancient paintings. Under the pale gray sky of a spring morning, the chapel bells rang rhythmically in harmony with military music, and lines of cars filed into the stone-paved courtyard, all heading toward an event that the British press had awaited for years, the wedding of Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles. People lined up along the avenue waving Union flags cheering. Some were genuinely joyful, others merely curious. For the many, this wedding was a big question mark about tradition, rather than a romantic story. While television broadcasted vibrant frames inside the chapel, the atmosphere was tense. Charles appeared in a neat military uniform, walking with a rare lightness, wearing a gentle smile that people hadn't seen in a long time, as if believing that from this moment, the past would be washed away. Beside him, Camilla leaned arms radiant and confident. She tried to keep her smile gentle, but her eyes gleamed with triumph, enjoying every glance that panned to her. Occasionally she whispered in his ear. Charles responded with a smile, and both chuckled softly, the kind of laugh from those who had just escaped the storm of public opinion, and believed they had stood firm. Princess Anne in the simple gray-blue coat walked slowly with cold ash. She had never believed in the harmony this marriage promised, and only saw before her a stage play. William and Harry passed through the rows of seats with tense faces, trying to be friendly, but unable to hide their distance when looking at Camilla. The duchesses and dukes maintained etiquette, yet some sidelong glances revealed caution. Longtime advisors only nodded silently, as if implicitly reminding that the storm of public opinion outside was still suppressed behind these ancient stone walls. Behind the closed doors in the preparation room reserved for the bride, Camilla Parker Bowles stood before the mirror, adjusting herself, her hands trembling slightly as she fixed the veil, but her eyes showed no tremor, containing not a hint of nervousness from a woman preparing for her second marriage, but the gaze of someone about to achieve what she had plotted for decades. The middle-aged servant, George Whitmore, who had served the royal family for over 20 years, entered to report the schedule, holding a small notebook and a pocket recorder. He often used to note things for convenience to avoid forgetting, and in that fleeting moment he accidentally pressed the record button, without realizing it. "Only 10 minutes left, ma'am." He bowed slightly. Camilla took a deep breath, then suddenly turned around, picked up the remaining glass of wine on the table, and took a small sip, perhaps, to calm herself. But after that, when only she and the old trusted servant were left in the room, the polite smile on her face vanished, replaced by a cold, calculating expression, and the words she said next were accidentally recorded, word for word, by the recorder in his pocket. "Do you know why I'm entering the family?" Her voice was low, but each word like a knife slash. "Not for love, certainly not for those cumbersome ceremonies out there, but because I want all the secrets they hide in these stone rooms. The secrets are my power, and once I have them all, no one in this royal family can touch me." Then, as if unable to suppress the boiling ambition, Camilla leaned down her voice, emphasizing each word, uttering 6 cold words that froze the entire room. "All this power will be mine." George slightly raised his head, stunned, not daring to utter a sound, his eyes wide open in surprise to the point of forgetting the bait. But Camilla seemed unconcerned. She stepped back to the mirror, continuing as if speaking to herself. Charles is really just a door. I need him to enter inside to lay hands on all files, all documents, everything that people have only whispered and hidden away for so long. Once I know everything, this royal family will belong to me, and those out there, including the public, including the press, will have to silently watch. Music from the great hall echoed and growing more lively. The servant wanted to leave to avoid hearing more things he shouldn't know, but his feet were as if nailed to the floor, and Camilla, as if to encourage herself, leaned down, speaking in a hoarse, low voice. "Everyone thinks today is the end of a controversy, but for me today is only the beginning. One day I will grasp all their secrets, and then no one can make me bow my head." A young assistant appeared at the door, announcing that the ceremonial procession was about to enter to escort. Camilla immediately changed her face, lifted the veil, adjusted her posture, and in an instant, the image of a calm woman preparing to enter the aisle appeared, as if no venomous words had just escaped. George retreated outside, his heart pounding, his hands trembling, holding the notebook unaware that in his pocket the recorder had stored everything. Throughout the ceremony he performed his duties as required, but his mind was uneasy, for he had witnessed the truth completely different from what the cameras outside were broadcasting. The wedding proceeded according to protocol. Thousands of lenses panned to the couple, cheers unending. And when Charles and Camilla stepped out of the chapel, her radiant smile dazzled the crowd. Only Anne, from the distant row seats, observed with cold calmness. She saw more clearly than anyone the great delight flashing in Camilla's eyes. In the evening, when the castle had quieted, Mr. Windsor returned to the small room for staff in the annex, placed a notebook on the table, and opened the recorder intending to erase it for tomorrow's work. He simply thought that during the hectic morning, he might have recorded some noise by mistake. But when he pressed play, the sound from the small speaker made him freeze every sentence Camilla said in the sealed room. The ambitious admissions in the final 6 words like a cold knife all emerged clearly. He stood stunned for a long time, sweat beading on his forehead, sat down with his hands still trembling. One thought rising in his mind, he must report immediately to superiors or someone in the royal family, because what he had just heard was not just irresponsible words but a conspiracy. All night he didn't sleep, pacing back and forth, considering dozens of times about reporting and handing over the recording the next morning. But everything didn't have time to take shape. As soon as dawn broke, another servant knocked on his door, delivering an order. Mrs. Camilla wants to meet privately. In the private room, Camilla sat straight back no longer. With a gentle smile of the wedding day, she looked at him with eyes cold as a blade. "I know you overheard what I said yesterday, but I trust you," she said slowly, each word pounding like on stone. "And I also know your family is in dire straits. You have a young daughter needing medicine, a dilapidated house, about to be taken by the bank. I can solve all that, but in return you will keep silent, forever." Windsor was stunned, wanted to speak, but his throat was dry. He had never felt so seen through and cornered. Camilla didn't stop. Her voice became sweet but even more terrifying. "Don't think silence has no benefit. I will ensure your family lives peacefully as long as you are loyal. But if you choose the other path, I can't be sure what will happen." Between fear and love for his family, Mr. Windsor nodded. From that day all his family's debts were quietly paid. Medicine for his daughter was sent regularly. The price in exchange for all that was he had to remain silent, swallow everything he had heard and live for 15 years like a ghost carrying the secret of that day. He never forgot that moment, but he also never expected that the woman who once extended a hand to help him that day. That night Windsor remained quiet as any other night, but a dark binding tie had been created, one that would cling and hunt him for 15 years until everything suddenly exploded into an unforeseen storm. 15 years had passed since the wedding day. Windsor, the servant who once held the deadly secret about Camilla, had lived a quiet life, seemingly erased from the palace. The ancient stone walls of Windsor Buckingham and Clarence House still stood as silent witnesses, but inside everything had changed. The United Kingdom went through many upheavals, public opinion shifted, and with that Camilla's position, now bearing the title of Queen, became increasingly solid, seemingly unshakable. Camilla had fulfilled her promise to Windsor, providing regular support to lift the family out of hardship, curing his daughter's illness in exchange for absolute silence. But silence eventually comes at a price, especially when loyalty is undervalued. As the British royal family entered an important transition phase, all eyes focused on the new plan, called New Power. A complete overhaul of the inner palace structure, promoted as an effort to modernize, streamline, and increase the royal family's influence in the 21st century. The overhaul would officially take place on June 10, 2025. At the center of that plan was not Charles, but Camilla herself. She was preparing to become the actual operating face, holding the advisory system budget and access to the secret archive that had previously been reserved for a very small girl. It was at that moment when Camilla's power was higher than ever, that those she had once favored began to lose value. On a gloomy morning, Windsor received an order to be transferred away from all inner palace work, a curt dismissal notice without any explanation. No position left, no more support. He and his family fell back into precariousness. He understood all too well protection only existed when he was useful. Now as he prepared to step to the pinnacle of power, he was no different from a discarded pawn, swept away without mercy. Sitting in the small house on the outskirts of Berkshire, Windsor silently looked at the trembling dismissal paper in his hand. Memory from 15 years ago flooding back. Every word Camilla said that day echoed each sentence like a knife. "All this power will be mine." He remembered her face the next morning, cold sharp when she forced him to silence. He had kept his word for 15 years in exchange for a peaceful life for his family. Yet now she personally trampled his life, leaving him back at the starting point, even more destitute. The simmering anger gradually turned into regret. For 15 years he lived in the shadows, keeping the recording deep in the drawer, letting her climb step by step on the ladder of power. He had thought he was doing the right thing for his family, but the price paid today made him realize silence had aided and ambition was no end. While Windsor was falling into desperation at Buckingham, Camilla and Charles prepared for the new power plan, a restructuring praised by the media as royal reform. But anyone inside understood it was a tool for Camilla to seize full operational control. In the weeks before announcing the plan, people witnessed a series of old faces being sidelined. Each personnel decision of hers was like a calculated chess move, disintegrating the traditional retinue system and replacing it with people loyal only to her. Princess Anne, throughout the long period, chose to keep her distance, performing her duties, staying away from internal disputes. But recently she increasingly felt a change in the palace atmosphere. Familiar faces of the old advisory team disappeared one by one, replaced by new faces, people loyal only to Camilla, no longer to the royal family in general. At parties Anne observed the old advisors avoiding interaction, their eyes full of apprehension. Whispers spread along the corridors. Some said they had seen the envelopes exchanged behind doors. Others recounted that some high-level palace officials suddenly withdrew after private negotiations, and those who refused to cooperate were all pushed to the sidelines. The climax was on an autumn evening. At the royal banquet she witnessed a group of long loyal advisors excluded from the guest list. No one said it out loud, but everyone understood this was no longer the bound royal family as before. In the golden light of the great hall, when Camilla entered with Charles, Anne suddenly remembered the wedding day 15 years ago. The image of Camilla in her wedding dress, the knife-sharp words in the sealed room. But that intuition now echoed strongly, and with her instinct Anne understood, there must be something in the past explaining the current ambition. It was that moment that ignited a determination in Anne she would find the root of it all. The next day she began investigating, not officially, not publicly, just quietly using long-standing relationships. In discreet visits to areas for former staff she heard many stories. An old housekeeper spoke about envelopes appearing behind doors. A former secretary talked about how Camilla eliminated those who didn't obey. And then the name George Windsor appeared like a secret never told. People said he had been a co-servant for 15 years. But just before the plan was announced, the palace bustled with secret meetings. He was then transferred and disappeared, leaving only rumors that Camilla had taken care of his life. No one knew why. No one knew what secret he held. Hearing that, Anne felt like a link had just clicked into place. If Camilla had intervened so deeply to push someone out of the palace, there must be a reason. On a gray afternoon she went to Berkshire. The small road led to the dilapidated house where Windsor lived in poverty, clear evidence of betrayal. When opening the gate she saw him sitting on the porch, his eyes sunken and tired, holding the crumpled dismissal paper. The moment their eyes met, Anne knew she had found the right person. Meanwhile at Buckingham the new power plan was being prepared intensively. Camilla appeared before the media lenses with a calm smile, but inside she was certain that in just a few months all the royal secrets she had craved since entering the wedding would be at her hands. She had no idea that just as she thought she was reaching absolute power, those she thought she had trampled long ago were rising, and that the most silent woman in the royal family, Princess Anne, had stepped out of the shadows carrying a question. What had Camilla hidden from 15 years ago? The answer was about to be unearthed, starting from the abandoned servant Windsor. Princess? His voice was hoarse with emotion and surprise. Anne looked at him, her voice low and calm, but unable to hide the weight of a determination that had been brewing. We need to talk, Mr. Windsor. In the small room, wind whistled through the door cracks, making the zinc curtain sway. The faint afternoon light shone on the old man's face, highlighting the deep wrinkles of a person who had endured too much oppression. He sat down on the wooden chair, his hands trembling, intertwined, facing Anne. The woman he knew was the most straightforward among the remaining royal members. Anne didn't beat around the bush. I've heard many stories, Windsor. I heard you were fired at before, that you were Camilla's closest from the wedding day, and were helped by Mrs. Camilla. But I want to hear the truth, and you'll hide from you yourself if you discover something. I think the royal family's about to fall into her hands. He was silent for quite a while then. As if no longer able to hide, he began to speak, his voice low, each word like digging up painful memories. Your Highness, that day I was just a middle-aged servant working quietly. I always noted with a small machine to avoid mistakes. That day before the wedding hour, I was sent to the preparation room to report the schedule. I didn't know that just one accidental press of the record button, my whole life would be swept into a secret. Anne listened attentively without interrupting. He took a deep breath, his fist clenched tightly. See, Camilla, when only I and she were left in the room, said words that even now I still shudder. Not a bit of love, not a bit of respect. She said she entered the royal family for nothing else but ambition, that she would take all the secrets of this palace to control everything. The final 6 words, I remember forever. All this power will be mine. The recount echoed in the small room, making the atmosphere set to the point Anne could feel each beat of her heart, but she remained calm, her voice lowering. And then you listened to it all again that night, he nodded. I intended to report immediately to superiors. All that night I didn't sleep, just thinking about responsibility, about the honor of the royal family. But the next morning, she called me in. His eyes suddenly darkened, as if remembering the moment of being cornered. She said she knew my family situation. My daughter was seriously ill, my house was about to be taken by the bank, and she promised to take care of everything. She told me, be silent, and your family will live. But if you speak out, I won't be responsible for what happens. Anne slightly closed her eyes. She could imagine that scene, a trap with no escape. And you accepted, she said. His voice trembled. I bowed my head. That day she turned me into a debtor. My family was saved, but from that moment I was only a shadow carrying a secret I was never allowed to utter. He looked up at Anne, his voice broken. Princess, she kept her promise for many years. I remained silent, living in anxiety. But when she began to seize everything, when she fired me without a word, abandoning my family back to destitution, I understood silence saves no one. I was wrong. My silence helped her go this far. Anne let him speak, and then she asked straight a question she had held in her heart since entering this house. Do you still have the recording? He stood up, slowly walked to an old wooden cabinet, opened the deep drawer inside. He took out a small tin box carefully to the point his hands trembled. When he turned back, his eyes lit up a bit, the light of liberation. This is everything I've kept for 15 years. I intended to bury it with me. But now, if I keep silent, this royal family will become what she wants. I can't let that happen. Anne received the box, her hands heavy. She knew inside was not just a recording. It was the passive fuse that could blow away the entire image Camilla had built over 15 years. She opened the box. Inside was an old recorder, still intact. Mr. Windsor pressed play. Camilla's voice echoed cold, clear word by word, like pulling everyone back to that day. In the small room, those words didn't just resound for the second time. They pierced through time, connecting today with the past, turning the present into the result of a conspiracy prepared long ago. When the recording ended, the room sank into silence. Windsor bowed his head, his thin shoulders shaking. Princess, this is the only truth I have. I hand it over to you. Not for revenge, but to correct my mistake. If you hold a press conference to expose, I can stand as a witness to Camilla's words. Anne stood up, approached and placed her hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing today. From now on, the rest is my job. She turned to leave through the door, her mind already outlining the path she would take. Outside, the cold wind stung her face, but her eyes burned with determination. Behind her, Mr. Windsor stood silently, his eyes blurred with tears, as if he had just lifted the weight that had pressed on his chest for 15 years. On the way back, the car glided through the golden withered fields of Berkshire, and Anne knew the moment of confrontation was coming. When she played the recording again, Camilla's voice echoed the fateful 6 words, repeating, "All this power will be mine." Now those 6 words would be the starting point of a new battle, a battle no longer in the shadows. Anne returned to Buckingham in anger. She found a reason to attend an early meeting to enter the palace. As the meeting room lights gradually dimmed, she walked into the corridor leading to Camilla's private work area, where few were allowed. The door was ajar. In the quiet room, the desk lamp was still on. Anne entered wanting to find Camilla to confront, but Camilla was nowhere. She accidentally picked up a tight file copy with Camilla's handwritten signature. A dark green leather document. On the cover printed the words, "Implementation Plan." New power copy. She opened it. The pages inside hit her eyes like a slap. New organizational chart list of people to be replaced, annotations on centralizing financial approval, and secret archives to a coordination center, an agency directly supervised by Camilla. At the end of the file was a new personnel projection with code notes. Replace all old housekeepers and servants. 2024, 2025. Cease housekeepers in a separate way. Anne closed the file, her face calm to the point of coldness. In that moment she understood that if not stopped, Camilla would turn the royal family into her own empire, where every member would be monitored and controlled by the secrets she held. Anne's hand gripped the paper edge tightly. At that moment the sound of peals echoed from the corridor. Her vigilant instinct rose. She immediately closed the file, tied it neatly, placed it back exactly, and retreated to the window, her face serene, as if she hadn't touched anything. The door swung open. Camilla entered, seeing Anne standing in her room, her eyes sharp and cold. Camilla, low voice. "What are you doing here, Anne?" Anne turned, slowly walking toward the door, as if not to rush her, passing by and shut the lights still on. "I thought, it's interesting how this room in the dead of night is so quiet." Camilla closed the door, stepping forward, her voice lowering. "Interesting, or are you looking for something? Our brother no longer trusts you, so you have to fumble yourself." Anne smiled lightly, but her eyes like knives. "It sounds funny what you say. You still think you're strong enough to stop me? When you're in a position no one can touch." Anne stepped closer, the distance only 1 step, her voice firm, no longer circling. "What do you intend to do with everything you're gathering into your hands? Do you want to seize this entire royal family and place yourself above all? Grasping all power, right?" Camilla smirked, her eyes flashing caution, but still trying to keep her voice calm. "So what? When everything is chaotic, only power can hold the throne." Anne paused half a beat, looking straight into her eyes, calmly replying, "Then let me see how big your new power can really get." With that, Anne turned and opened the door to leave. Camilla stood silently in the room, her face cold as stone. She clenched her fist but didn't bow, still standing tall, believing that the new power plan she built would be strong enough to crush any coming storm. Anne didn't hold a press conference, didn't appear much, but secretly gathered all evidence, Windsor's recording testimony from forced retired courtiers, foreign money transfer files, and even buried internal reports reinforcing Camilla's misdeeds. Each piece was a sharp knife prepared to stab into the heart of new power. At the same time, Camilla grew more confident, preparing for the upcoming event. In the palace, people talked about the grand announcement at Buckingham, a event the press called Historic Day. Her images appeared continuously radiant, authoritative, confident, that she had finally become the actual operator, surpassing any limits a queen had ever had. No one knew behind the scenes Anne had set up a plan for that morning. June 10th, 2025, the day to announce new power arrived. Buckingham's Great Hall shone brightly with lights. Hundreds of guests, international press crowded. Camilla in the pearl-colored dress, small crown on head, walked confidently beside Charles. She knew in just minutes she would officially become the one behind everything, the one holding power. Applause rang out as the host solemnly introduced, "Please welcome Queen Camilla to speak on the new era of the British royal family." Camilla stepped into the light, her smile phrasing every camera lens. Her voice echoed throughout the hall, slow but firm. "New power is not to replace anyone, but to strengthen a stronger, more united royal family steadfast against all changes. Today I stand here not just as a queen, but as the one who will open a clean and resolute era for us. This is the time for everyone to turn a new page, and I will be the leader." Applause thundered, resounding through the great hall. Cameras flashed continuously, guests stood clapping. In that moment, Camilla believed that everything belonged to her. But as the applause subsided, the commotion from the end of the hall arose. The large door opened and all eyes turned to a familiar figure. Anne. The host stammered. Princess Anne. Sorry, but the ceremonious Anne didn't let him finish. She stepped forward, her voice clear without a microphone, yet overpowering the crowd's murmurs. Before this nation hears about a reform, the royal family and the people need to hear the truth. And today I come to bring the truth to light. Camilla smiled stiffly, a smile full of contempt. Camilla Anne, you're ruining an important day. If you want attention, you've chosen the wrong time. Anne turned straight facing Camilla, her eyes like steel. No, Camilla. This is the only appropriate time. We won't step into a new era built on lies and schemes. Charles Anne, this, if you have something, Anne looked at her brother, her voice soft but uncompromising. Brother, this is responsibility to the throne you're holding. Please let me present before everything is buried forever. The council and guests fell silent. The host stepped back, yielding the stage to Anne. Anne signaled for Windsor to step up. He stood beside her, his voice trembling, but clear before the microphone. I am George Windsor. I was once a close servant on the wedding day of King Charles and Mrs. Camilla. 15 years ago, I accidentally recorded words that if all of England heard would understand the true nature of this woman. Murmurs filled the hall. Anne opened the box to press play. Camilla's voice from that day echoed each word clear to the speakers. Not for love, not for those cumbersome ceremonies out there. I want all the secrets they hide in these stone rooms. Their secrets are my power. All this power will be mine. The recording ended. The entire hall shook. Camilla smiled disdainfully, intending to deny. This is just an edited recording. A cheap trick. Anne didn't flinch. We have the original device intact. And Mr. Windsor is ready to testify, swear before the law about how it was recorded. But this is just the beginning. Anne continued to take out another file. The days working with everyone in the royal family helped me notice abnormalities. When attending meetings, receptions, scattered stories from those eliminated, gradually emerged people who quietly came to me because they had no one left to trust. I met each of them, courtiers and advisors, who served the royal family for many years. Eliminated systematically by you. Recorded every word they said, cross-checked each detail, and finally invited lawyers to confirm, to become legal documents. This is the signed testimonies of 12 courtiers and advisors who once served the royal family, those who were eliminated or forced to silence for Camilla, without daring to speak. They testified to being forced to resign with money and threats when refusing to follow Mrs. Camilla's orders. This is the original with lawyer certification. Some council members below nodded, flipping through pages headed by assistants. Press pan cameras, murmurs growing louder. Camilla shrugged, her voice full of disdain. Those people have left the palace. Their words now have no value. They are disgruntled, seeking revenge. Anne replied each word like a nail. Disgruntlement can't be uniformly the same, Camilla. 12 people, 12 stories, all pointing to one point. Power in your hands has become a tool to eliminate all who dare speak the truth. Next, she held up a thick file, green seal. This is bank documents proving millions of pounds transferred to overseas funds run by your close friends. These amounts began appearing right when the new power plan started. Camilla gripped the railing, her face paling, but still trying to stay calm. Those funds are for charity projects you don't understand. Anne gritted. You used charity as a cover, but all declarations here show the money was used to build a separate system, not belonging to the royal family but to you. I have confirmation from independent auditors. The hall began to buzz, cameras handing to Camilla. Finally, Anne loudly placed her hand on the break page beside. Her voice lowered each word like a knife slash. But the final evidence undeniable is here. She opened the case, pulled out a dark green leather file. The copy printed the implementation plan. No power copy. A waiver of Washburn's rules. Anne flipped pages held them before the council. This is the original taken from your own office. This plan outlines how you intend to control the entire royal family. Centralized financial approval and secret file through a coordination center, headed by you. Eliminate the entire traditional advisory system, replace with your people. Replace the entire servant team in 2025. Anne held the plan wide, stunning everyone speechless. And Anne held up a last page with a clear signature. Queen Camilla. A fierce commotion erupted. Cameras flashed non-stop. Anne looked straight at Camilla. Can you still deny this isn't modernization? This is a silent coup. And today, before the entire people and before the sovereign, I announce this truth. Camilla stood up abruptly, her voice high, trembling with rage. This is slander. All just a stage play to humiliate me before the public. Do you want to destroy the royal family, Anne? You're destroying your own reputation. Anne stepped forward, her eyes calm yet firm. No, Camilla. You are the one who did that from the day you stepped into this palace. And today the truth has been returned to its place. Charles looked at Camilla, his eyes full of confusion and disappointment. He took the file, flipped a few pages, and his lips pursed tightly. The entire hall sank into heavy silence. Anne continued this time, her voice louder than ever. I don't speak for myself alone. I speak for dozens of people you eliminated for a servant pushed to the streets, after 15 years of silence, for the loyalty and honor you trampled. Today the public will see your true face, and there will be no power anymore. Camilla couldn't say a word, her face pale, eyes darting everywhere seeking an ally, but no one dared speak. As soon as Anne's last words ended, camera sounds and reporters calling echoed like a hailstorm. Flashlights blinded the hall, drowning the indignant murmurs. Questions poured like arrows. Princess Anne, did the royal family know about this plan before? Do you intend to hand this file to an independent investigation agency, Mr. Windsor? Why only now do you speak out? Questions intertwined, noisy to the point security had to form a line, rocking between the main stage and press seats. The guest crowd chaotic, many stood abruptly whispering in confusion and shock. The advisors who once hovered around her, those she had supported for 15 years, quietly left their seats one by one, not a glance back. They understood the game was over. Charles said nothing. He slumped into his chair, one hand on his forehead, the other on the file with Camilla's signature. In his silence, Camilla found no more excuse. The smile she once held firm like a mask suddenly shattered. The whole room now only had cold white light shining straight on her face. She tried to lift her head, seeking a sympathetic look, but received only alienation and astonished eyes from everyone. A reporter at the back suddenly exclaimed, echoing the hall. "No one believes you anymore, Your Majesty." The words like a final knife. Everything in her broke. Camilla clutched the podium edge, forcing herself to stand. But before she could step away, Anne advanced straight, standing face to face. Her voice calm, yet cold, each word clear. In the dead silence faced Camilla. "I warned you long ago, but you chose to ignore. This isn't everyone's betrayal of you, but punishment for what you did to this royal family. Today everything you used to crush others has come back to you. This is just the beginning." Anne stepped back, her eyes not leaving Camilla's dazed face. She turned her back, trying to keep each step straight, but her thin shoulders trembled slightly. The high heels clicked rigidly on the marble floor. No one stopped her. No one called her name. For the first time in her life, Camilla felt truly alone. The third day after the chaotic announcement, Buckingham Palace was silent. The flags, once flying vibrantly, were lowered halfway, as if signaling the end of an era of power just revealed, but buried before it began. In the vast rooms, the ancient stone walls still stood tall, but the atmosphere inside had completely changed. Camilla was summoned to a close meeting of the Palace Council and senior royal family members. On the long table covered in green velvet files, stacked high, all evidence Anne had presented. She sat at the head, but this time no smile, no greeting nod. Every eye was cold. In the same session, the Royal Council also announced they would grant Mr. Windsor, who stood up to tell the truth, a lifetime allowance enough for him and his family to live peacefully till the end. They thanked his honesty and courage, seeing it as compensation for the 15 years he endured silence to protect his family. This news spread outside, moving public opinion, and calling him the servant who saved the royal family's honor. When the meeting ended, the decision was made. Camilla would leave Buckingham, temporarily suspend all royal privileges. No one dared call her queen anymore, only the name Camilla Parker Bowles like an ordinary woman. Charles didn't stand to defend her. He only bowed his head, shoulders slumped, looking out the window without glancing at her eyes once. That silence hurt more than any condemnation. Camilla stepped out of the meeting room, heavy wooden door slamming behind her. She walked through the corridor. This time, no one dared converse. No polite greetings, no signs of the respect she once forced. Everything vanished as if it never existed. The next day she quietly left Buckingham. No luxurious carriage, no escort, only an ordinary car taking her to Clarence House, where she once considered her base. But as the car rolled, she knew she was no longer part of the royal family. In that familiar room, once full of pride, now only deadly silence. Camilla removed each piece of jewelry, each ring, placing them on the table, like shilling masks. The mirror reflected a woman who had gone through everything, climbed the highest but finally fallen to the deepest abyss. She looked into her eyes, seeing only fear, and a big unanswered question. Why did everyone abandon her all at once? As night fell, London, city lit up, but to her everything dimmed. No more meetings, no servants, no packed schedules. Things she once dreamed and controlled for 15 years. Only her alone, a tiny shadow in the wide room. The fifth day after the scandal press, flooded with articles, images of Camilla's downfall. Everywhere big headlines. The most powerful woman in the royal family falls. New power turns into disaster. Camilla Parker Bowles leaves palace in disgrace. No one stood by her, even though she once favored stay silent to keep their own pets. Camilla didn't read the papers, but she couldn't stop the sounds outside the door, couldn't avoid images on TV when turned on. All reminded her of one thing: everything was over. That night she locked herself in the room, drew the curtains, turned off all lights. Only golden light from a small desk lamp shone on old papers she gathered. Notes, plans, charts she once believed were weapons to control everything, now just meaningless papers. She flipped each page, hands trembling, each line like a knife reminding of the illusion crushed right before her eyes. Camilla placed the file on the table, held her head with both hands. In the quiet room, rapid breathing echoed like her own footsteps, fleeing something invisible. Then she burst into tears. At first just a few silent tears falling on her hands, but then sobs grew choked like a broken dam. She cried for everything, for years of humiliation, for calculations built like a fortress, but collapsed in one day for the truth that from now on, she had no one beside her. The crying grew more intense, turning into heart-wrenching screams. She collapsed to the floor, hands clawing the silk carpet, hair disheveled, face choked. In that moment, the woman who once thought she could control everything was no different from an abandoned soul. Tears flowed endlessly. She cried and muttered as if speaking to herself, to the past. This can't be the end. I did everything for this. I endured humiliation for so many years. Why now does everything abandon me? But no answer came. Only wind blowing outside the window and the clock ticking cold beats. All that night Camilla didn't sleep. She sat by the window, eyes vacant, looking down London streets. For the first time in years, she no longer felt this place was hers. Her mind only empty. The next morning people saw her room in disarray. New power drafts torn scattered on the floor. The large mirror cracked long from being flung, and she slumped in a corner, gray hair cascading over shoulders, eyes dazed. Servants were ordered to keep distance, only place stood at the door, no one dared enter. News of her removal from all royal activities was officially announced at noon, and from that day no one saw her appear anymore. The room became Camilla's only remaining world, a narrow, gloomy world where a woman once holding grand ambition, now only cried to exhaustion, cried until everything in her heart shattered, then fell into endless silence, and the era ended. The price of power isn't losing everything. The price is when at the very top then falling alone, and no one extends a hand to help anymore.